familiar room, the dim desk lamp shining on my face, behind a blank grey wall. I torqued the lens, telling the haunting story of a person trapped in a video and unable to escape. I added some sound effects, adjusted the color scheme to make the frame darker, giving everything a cold, ominous feel. After a few hours of editing, I hit the upload button. The title was simple: I'm stuck in my own video. I didn't expect much, just that it would get a few dozen views as usual. I turned off my computer, lay down on my bed, and quickly fell asleep. But just a few hours later, I woke up to a strange sound. Something like a keyboard tapping, echoing from the corner of the room where my laptop was still open. I rubbed my eyes, walked over, and froze. On the screen was the video I had just posted. But the strange thing was, it was live, even though I was sure I had just uploaded a normal clip. In the video, I saw myself sitting in this room, with the desk lamp on, with the grey wall behind me. But I didn't remember filming this. The me in the video looked straight at the screen, eyes wide, and whispered something I could clearly hear. "Why did you leave me here?" I jumped back, my heart pounding. The words echoed in my head, as if they were coming not only from the speakers, but also from the four walls around me. I tried to stop the video, but the mouse cursor didn't move. The screen kept playing. The image in the video didn't stop either. I saw the other version of me stand up, walk closer to the lens, and press my hand against the screen. At that moment, I felt a cold air flow out of the screen, making my skin crawl. I stuttered out my name, unconsciously, as if to confirm that this was just a joke on my part. But it wasn't. The me in the video smiled, a crooked smile, and continued. "You have no idea what you've created, Daniel. This isn't just a video. This is a prison." My mind was spinning. I quickly pulled the plug and turned off the computer. The room was dark, except for the moonlight outside the window. I thought everything was over. But then, in the darkness, a faint blue light flickered on from the laptop screen that had been turned off. I approached it, my hands shaking. The screen was black, but still reflected my silhouette like a distorted mirror. And then, my silhouette in the screen ... winked. I screamed loudly, rushed out of the room, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it was about to burst out of my chest. I stood in the hallway, trying to take deep breaths to calm myself down. Was it all just an illusion? Maybe I had overworked myself, lacked sleep, and my mind was playing tricks on me. I told myself so, but my heart was still trembling. The next morning, when the sunlight poured through the window, I returned to the room. The laptop was still there, the screen black and silent. I turned it on. Everything seemed normal again. I opened the YouTube channel to check. My video had over 10,000 views overnight, something that had never happened before. But it was the comments that sent chills down my spine. Viewers weren't talking about what I was saying. They were talking about the person in the video looking straight at them. Some said that in the third paragraph, when I stopped talking, my lips were still moving, making silent sounds. Some claimed they heard whispers calling their names from within the video. Some even said they saw me walk out of the frame, gliding across their room on the screen. I read each comment, my hands shaking. The chilling scares that viewers described were not part of my script. They were details I had never filmed, never edited. I started to feel suffocated, like an invisible rope was tightening around my neck. I tried to delete the video, but the delete button disappeared. I tried to delete the channel, but the system gave an error message. Everything seemed to be against me. weren't in the original footage that night. As I tried to sleep, I heard the laptop speakers turn on. My voice, but not mine, echoed through the room. "You think you can escape, Daniel? You opened the door, and it never closes." I pulled the covers over my head, my heart pounding, every cell in my body screaming that I was entering a vicious cycle with no way out. And that was just the beginning. Hello, everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk, after the first night of nightmares, I tried to convince myself that everything was just a hallucination due to lack of sleep. I went outside to get some fresh air, had breakfast, and reassured myself that the new day would dispel the nightmare. However, when I returned to the familiar room, the feeling of insecurity still overwhelmed me. The laptop lay still on the table, the screen was black, but I felt like it was watching my every move. I decided not to turn on the computer anymore. Instead, I used my phone to check. I opened YouTube, scrolled through the videos I usually watched, but immediately, in the first suggestion, I saw my own video. The thumbnail was not the same as the one I had selected. Instead of me sitting at the table, the thumbnail showed my face gaunt, my eyes dark, my gaze piercing the viewer. I shuddered. I clicked to watch. The video played, but it was not the original. It was longer, with scenes I had never filmed. In the video, I, or some version of me, stood in the living room, looking straight into the camera and whispering, "I know you're watching. You won't escape, either." The voice was distorted, echoing as if coming from a tunnel. I quickly exited and turned off my phone. But a few seconds later, the screen turned back on. The video continued playing, and the face moved closer to the screen. I threw the phone on the sofa, my heart pounding. At this point, I began to sense something was wrong. This was no longer a technical problem, no longer a visual joke. This was one of those real horror stories, where the line between reality and fantasy was blurred. I tried to remove the SIM card, turn off the phone, but as soon as I turned it back on, the video was still on the home screen, as if it had taken control. Worse, I discovered that every device in the house, from the TV, to the tablet, to the small screen on the smart fridge had, started playing the same scene. Me, with blank eyes, repeating a single phrase over and over again. "The door is open. There's no way back." I collapsed to the floor, my hands covering my head. The sound echoed throughout the house, each word hitting my ears. I burst into tears, not from pure fear, but from a sense of helplessness in the face of something I didn't understand and couldn't control. I thought about running away, leaving the apartment, but anxiety crept in. If I left, would the video follow me out? The second night came. I was exhausted, but I couldn't sleep. The TV speakers were on, even though I was sure I'd unplugged them. The screen glowed in the darkness, showing me standing in the middle of the room, behind me a slightly open door. But in real life, my apartment didn't have a door. I moved closer to the screen, my eyes straining to see. The door in the video slowly opened wider, and the darkness from inside seemed to spread throughout the room. I could clearly feel the cold air surrounding me. I stepped back, slammed the light switch, and lit up the room. But the yellow light could not dispel the feeling that the darkness was still creeping into every corner of the house. I ran into the bedroom, closed the door tightly, and pulled the wardrobe in front of me. I covered myself with the blanket, trying to close my eyes. voices of hundreds of others, male, female, old, young, all singing in a terrifying chord. In that moment, I understood that I was not just facing a monstrous clone. Perhaps this video held many other souls, people who had been sucked in before me. The thought sent a chill down my spine. I suddenly remembered the strange comments under the video. Some said they felt sucked in when they watched it. Some said they dreamed of me standing in their room. Had all those people disappeared? I didn't dare open the video again to check, but I also knew that if I didn't find a way, I would become a part of it. That night, I barely slept. I just sat in the corner, listening to the whispers getting louder and louder, until the morning light shone in. The next morning, I decided to try something. I would go to the public library, use the computer there to check the video. I wanted to make sure it wasn't just haunting the equipment in my house. When I got there, I opened a computer, typed in my channel name. The video was still there. Hundreds of thousands of views, comments skyrocketing. But when I opened the video, something terrifying happened. In the frame, there was no longer a dark room or a strange door. This time, I saw myself sitting in the library, in the corner of the table where I was sitting. And the me in the video turned to look straight into the lens, my dark eyes deep, a cold smile. I panicked and turned off the screen, but the entire row of computers in the library turned on at the same time, all showing my image. Everyone around looked at me in surprise, and I stood there dumbfounded, not knowing how to explain. I rushed out, panting as if I had just escaped from an invisible trap. I began to realize there was no longer any spatial limit. That video could appear anywhere. The third night came, and this time, I clearly felt that the presence in the apartment no longer belonged to me. Since the sun set, the atmosphere in the house had changed. The wind outside whistled softly through the window, but inside it was suffocatingly quiet. I sat huddled in the corner of the living room, my eyes fixed on the laptop screen that had been turned off since the afternoon. It lay there, like a beast waiting for its prey, waiting for the right moment to attack. I tried to turn on music on my phone to drown out the silence, but after a few seconds, the melody disappeared, replaced by a familiar whisper. My voice, or rather, the voice of something shaped like me, said, "Daniel, how long do you think you can hide?" I shivered, quickly turned off the phone. But as soon as darkness covered the room, the laptop screen lit up again. The video played automatically, without anyone needing to start it. In the frame, I saw this very living room, with the same view as where I was sitting. And then, from outside the frame, a dark figure moved slowly in. The figure was faint, like thick smoke, but its eyes glowed with an unusual white light. I sat there, frozen, my heart pounding as if it were about to burst out of my chest. The shadow in the video stepped closer to the version of me in the frame. But what terrified me the most was, as it got closer, I felt a cold air fill the real apartment. I turned my head to look behind me. In the darkness, in the corner of the room, the same shadow was standing, exactly like in the video. The lifeless white eyes stared straight at me, unblinking. I screamed, rushing to the light switch, but the light could not dispel it. The shadow still stood there, its body distorted, as if it did not obey the laws of physics, gradually approaching me. I backed away, my back touching the cold wall. My trembling hand grabbed a chair, threw it towards it. The chair passed through, falling to the floor with a deafening sound. The shadow didn't disappear, just tilted its head, as if laughing at my uselessness. I rushed into the bedroom and locked the door. A soft knock sounded, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, like a distorted heartbeat outside the door. I pressed my ear to the wall, listening to a long whisper. "You gave me a body. Now it's my turn to come out." Those words made my blood freeze. I tried to ignore it, lying still on the bed, pulling the covers over my head. But after a few minutes, I felt someone sitting at the end of the bed. The mattress dipped, the cold air hitting my feet. I mustered up the courage to pull the covers back, and I saw no one. But the indentation on the mattress was still there, as clear evidence that I wasn't imagining things. I began to understand. The video wasn't just a picture. It was a portal, a way for something from the other side to enter the real world. And I, somehow, had inadvertently opened that portal for it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just lay still, my ears straining to hear every strange noise. Whispers, small laughter, and even the sound of footsteps shuffling down the hallway. But the most terrifying thing was when I looked back at the laptop screen through the crack in the bedroom door. In the video, I saw myself sleeping in this very room. But what was unusual was, on the frame, at the end of the bed, a dark figure was sitting silently, watching me. I don't know how the video recorded this scene. I didn't set up a camera, nor did I film. But the image was so real, every detail in the room was exactly like in real life. I could only curl up, praying for morning to come soon. When dawn broke, everything seemed to disappear. The room lit up, the laptop was silent as usual. But I knew, clearly, it was just a lull. The thing in the video didn't disappear. It was just waiting for the night to fall again to continue walking out. I started thinking about leaving the apartment, going somewhere else to get away from all the electronics. But could I escape when the video was attached to me like a part of my body? Was there really any place safe? That question haunted me all day long, and I knew the answer would come on the fourth night, when more than just the shadow appeared from the gate I had accidentally opened. The fourth night came, and I no longer had the strength to pretend that everything was just a dream. Everything that had happened in the previous 3 nights was real, and now I had to face the fact that I was living with something that did not belong to this world. Since dusk, I had seen the apartment change. The air was as thick as fog. Every small sound echoed many times, creating the feeling that the room was larger than usual. I sat in the dark, my back pressed tightly against the wall, my eyes glued to the laptop still on the table. I knew it would light up at any moment. Around midnight, the screen suddenly flashed. I was startled, my heart clenched. The video played without anyone controlling it. This time it was no longer a single frame. I saw a dark door open in the video, a cold blue light shining out. And from that door, not just one black shadow, but a series of blurry figures began to crawl out. Head after head, hand after hand. Distorted body after distorted body jostled to escape the screen. The sound was horrible, like dozens of throats whispering at the same time, creating a dull chord. I clearly felt the ground beneath my feet shaking slightly, as if this small apartment was turning into an extension of another place. I tried to retreat, but my trembling legs did not listen. When the first shadow completely stepped out, I saw that it was tall, but its body was like thick black smoke. Its face was just a bottomless pit. Right after it, more figures followed. My small room suddenly became cramped, every dark corner filled with distorted creatures. They did not rush to attack, but all turned their heads to look at me. That look froze me. I stammered and pleaded, "What do you want from me?" There was no answer, only a soft laughter echoed. One of them stepped closer, his body blending with the darkness, whispering right in my ear, "You opened the gate. Now you have to pay." I burst into tears, frantically hitting the light switch, but the light no longer worked. Every bulb burned out and then went out, leaving the eerie blue glow from the laptop screen to illuminate the entire apartment. I ran to the main door, trying to unlock it, but the handle was stiff as if welded shut. I pulled and banged with all my might, but to no avail. I was literally stuck. The apartment was now a sealed box, and the creatures were slowly approaching. I felt like each step they took was draining the warmth from my body. In a moment of despair, I looked back at the laptop screen. Inside the video, beyond the dark door, I saw something that looked like my apartment, but empty, cold, and full of ghosts. I suddenly understood. This video was more than just a recording. It was a portal between my world and a ghostly version. And somehow, I had let that world in. I cowered in the corner, muttering a prayer. A few entities stopped, tilting their heads as if observing curiously. Another shadow crawled along the ground, its body stretched unnaturally, almost touching my feet. I screamed, cowering, but it just stopped there, its white eyes fixed on me. All night, I was surrounded by those strange entities. They didn't attack, but they didn't leave either. They just stood there, surrounding me, as if waiting for the right moment. I couldn't sleep, couldn't move, could only shiver until the morning light crept outside the window. When the sun rose, it all disappeared. The laptop screen went dark, the apartment was quiet again. But I knew I was no longer alone. The gate was open, and it never closed. My apartment had become their home. I was an intruder in my own home, and I knew that the fifth night would be worse when they would not just stand by and watch, but would start touching me, drawing me deeper into the other world. On Thursday night, I knew things were getting out of hand. I spent the day avoiding the apartment, wandering the streets, sitting in crowded cafes to avoid the feeling of being watched. But the more I tried to hide, the more I realized I couldn't escape. In the cafe's mirror, I saw a blurry figure of myself sitting at another table, staring at me with dark eyes. On the high TV screen, my video suddenly played, even though the staff insisted they weren't playing it. Everything clung to me like a shadow. Finally, I was forced to return to the apartment as the sky darkened. As soon as I entered, I felt the air was different, colder, denser, and heavier. The room was dark, but the laptop screen was already on, emitting an eerie pale blue light. In the video, I saw myself sitting in the corner of the living room, exactly where I was now. But the difference was, in that frame, dozens of black figures stood close around me, crowded together, as if waiting for orders. Before I could react, a soft laugh rang out. I turned my head. Right behind me, the space swirled into a stream of black smoke, and from it, a long hand reached out. The skin of the hand was grey, the nails were sharp, cold as ice. It placed itself on my shoulder. My whole body froze. I wanted to scream, but my throat was choked. The pressure of the hand tightened more and more. I felt as if the blood in my body stopped flowing. Every cell contracted. My breathing was rapid. Sweat poured out, but was immediately swallowed by the cold air. I struggled, but to no avail. The other arm was terribly strong, as if it did not belong to a human body. In a panic, I looked at the laptop screen. The version in the video was also being held tightly by a similar hand. My eyes in it looked straight out, asking for help. I understood that there was no longer a boundary between me and that image. They had merged, and I was trapped in the fear I had created. I screamed desperately, "Let me go." The sound echoed back, echoing throughout the room like 100 voices in unison. The entities around me began to move. They bowed their heads. Each incomprehensible whisper filled the space. I felt like I was standing in a ghostly ritual, and I was the sacrifice. The other hand pulled hard, dragging me towards the screen. I scratched the floor, trying to cling to anything, but everything seemed to disappear under my hand. Only the pale blue light from the laptop remained, getting brighter and brighter, gradually swallowing the room. I was almost sucked in. My upper body was close to the screen, the cold air radiating from it cut into my flesh. In a moment of despair, I remembered the prayer, the fragmented words from my childhood. I mumbled, not sure if it was right or wrong. Suddenly, the other hand stopped. I felt the pulling force weaken a little. The entities around me all screeched in unison, as if annoyed by the sound. I took the opportunity to struggle away with all my might, falling flat on the floor. I crawled back, eyes fixed on the screen. The shadow in the video receded, the hand disappeared, but the door in the frame remained open, the blue light flickering. I knew this wasn't the end. This was only temporary. They had let me escape this time, but they would surely return stronger. All night, I didn't dare to sleep. I sat in my room, the lights on, staring at my laptop. Inside, I sometimes saw my shadow appear, grinning, eyes empty. I began to wonder if I was really me in real life, or if I was just a shadow escaping from the video. And I knew that Friday night would bring an even more terrifying truth, when I realized I wasn't just being haunted, but being gradually replaced. On Friday, I woke up exhausted. My body was heavy, my mind was spinning as if I had just experienced an endless nightmare. I trudged into the bathroom and turned on the faucet to wash my face. But as soon as I looked up at the mirror, my heart almost stopped. The reflection was no longer me. It was a familiar but distorted face, with empty eyes and an unnaturally wide smile. It was the face in the video. I quickly turned away, rubbed my eyes, and told myself that I was dizzy from lack of sleep. But when I turned back, the image was still there, even smirking. I raised my hand to touch my face, but the image in the mirror did not follow. It just stood still, staring. My whole body trembled. I smashed the mirror, glass pieces falling. But in each small piece, the same face was still watching. I ran to the living room, gasping for breath. The laptop on the table lit up again, even though I had unplugged it the day before. On screen, I saw myself sitting in the bathroom, staring straight into the mirror and laughing coldly. The scene was long, detailed, and impossible because I hadn't turned around. I screamed, slamming the laptop lid, but it didn't turn off. Instead, the distorted face reached out and tapped the screen as if testing its limits. As I backed away, I caught a glimpse of myself on the TV, even though it was unplugged. The version in it wasn't doing the same thing I was doing. It smiled, then whispered, "You're disappearing, Daniel. I'll be you." For the rest of the day, I didn't dare look at any reflective surfaces, but they were everywhere, on my phone screen, on the glass window, even on the stainless steel spoons in the kitchen. Wherever I looked, I saw that distorted face, and it became more and more real, no longer a blurry image. myself from losing control. I turned on the lights, but the light did nothing to block out the presence. The laptop screen played a new video. Me, but with a disfigured face, opening the apartment door, stepping out into the hallway. I panicked. If this was real, I would be completely replaced. I rushed to the front door to check. The lock was still on, the door still closed. But footsteps were coming from the hallway, steady and heavy. Someone or something was walking outside with the same gait as me. The footsteps stopped right in front of the door. Then there was a knock 3 times. I froze, not daring to breathe. My own voice rang out from outside. "Daniel, open the door." "I want to go back," I screamed. "No, I am the real one." But when I looked down at the laptop, I saw the version on the screen knocking on the door from the inside, as if I was the one trapped in the video. I felt dizzy, reality turned upside down. I was starting to doubt myself. I pulled the fridge door shut with all my might, then huddled in a corner. Outside, the knocking continued steadily, mixed with raucous laughter. Inside, the laptop continued to play footage of me opening the door, walking out, then disappearing into the dark hallway. I realized that if I let my guard down or fell asleep, the thing would replace me completely. All night, I struggled to stay awake. Every second felt like torture. That distorted face kept appearing on every screen, every piece of glass, whispering that my time was up. And I knew that Saturday night would be the decisive moment when I would have to face my replacement in this very apartment. On Saturday night, I could feel the final boundary being breached. The space in the apartment was so heavy that I could hardly breathe. All the screens were off, but still reflected a dim blue light, as if waiting for the decisive moment. I sat with my head down, my eyes closed, but every cell in my body screamed that something terrible was approaching. The knocking sounded again, louder this time, more urgent. I knew clearly that no one was in the hallway, but the knocking still echoed rhythmically, like a distorted heart beating right in front of the door. I asked tremblingly, "Who are you?" My voice echoed back from the other side. "I am you. I am real." I backed away, my back touching the wall. The laptop on the table suddenly lit up. The video showed me standing right in front of the door, key in hand, ready to open. But I was sitting here, huddled, not moving. My head was spinning, reality was torn in two, the sound of the lock clicking. I panicked, rushed to hold the handle, but the handle turned violently, and the door swung open. From outside, my clone walked in. It was exactly like me, from the way it walked to every gesture, but its eyes were empty and its smile was crooked. We faced each other. The space was filled with absolute silence. I felt like I was looking into a living mirror, but the mirror was full of malice. It spoke in a voice, my voice, but colder, louder. "Daniel, you've taken my place for too long. Now it's time for me to take over." I shook my head, stammering, "No, I'm the real one. I won't let you take my life." But it only smiled, moving closer. Each step it took made the apartment shake slightly, as if the floor couldn't bear the presence of both of us at the same time. I tried to run, but all the windows and doors were tightly shut, as if locked by an invisible force. I circled behind it, trying to escape, but it turned its head so fast it was unnatural. Its black eyes locked onto me, freezing me like a statue. It held out its hand, as if inviting me. "Come here, Daniel. You know you're tired. Let me live for you." Its voice was sweet, but it had a strange pull. I felt my will it still stood there, its eyes glowing in the darkness. I knew it wasn't gone. It was waiting for me to weaken. And I was sure that the 8th night would be the time when it would do everything it could to take me completely, with no way back. By the 8th night, the apartment had become a battlefield. It was no longer simply a haunting of shadows or images from a video, but a direct confrontation between me and my own copy. It stood in the middle of the room, its body identical to mine, but its eyes cold as ice. Its face distorted with an unnaturally long smile. In the dim blue light from the laptop, it looked like a completely different person, a creature in human form. It walked slowly towards me, each step seemingly deliberate. Each of its steps made the air in the room thicker, a soft hiss echoing from the dark corners, as if dozens of invisible voices were cheering it on. I backed away, sweat running down my forehead, my heart pounding. I knew if I let it touch me, I would disappear, and it would take my place in the real world. Daniel, it called my name in the same voice, but long, echoing, mixed with mockery. You can't win. I'm the real one. I'm stronger than you, I screamed, trying to hide my trembling. No, I'm the real one. You're just something that came out of the video. A soulless parasite. It laughed loudly, the sound reverberating throughout the room, making me feel like the walls were shaking. I rushed to the kitchen, grabbed the knife, but when I raised it, I suddenly realized my hand was shaking so much that I couldn't hold it steady. The clone stepped closer, its black eyes flashing with a fierce light. You think this thing will hurt me? It said, moving closer, then reaching out to grab the blade. I was horrified when the knife passed through its hand like smoke, harmlessly. It just sneered, then swung its arm and threw me to the floor. I jumped up, gasping. I realized this wasn't a physical battle, but a mental one. It wanted me to fall, to believe I'd lost, to give way to it. I tried to keep my mind clear, repeating in my head, I'm real, I'm real. But the clone seemed to hear. It tilted its head, smiled, and muttered, really? Then why do you see me in the mirror? Why do you see me on every screen? Could it be that you're the one trapped in the video, and I've been living in real life for a long time? Those words were like a knife piercing my mind. A flash of doubt flashed, making my heart waver. I looked around the room, saw the laptop showing me sitting on the floor, trembling, while in real life I was doing the same thing. Reality and video blended together, making me not know which was real. It rushed forward, grabbed my shoulder tightly, its face close to mine. Its deep black eyes seemed to want to suck my soul into them. I struggled, feeling the cold spread through my body, my consciousness fading. In that moment, I remembered the time I read someone's comment. Don't look into its eyes. Hold on to your own memories. I closed my eyes tightly, trying to remember things only I had. The first morning, I learned to ride a bike with my father. The first time I posted a video on YouTube with excitement. The small joys no one else had experienced. I screamed in my mind, I am real. I live this life. A small warmth flashed through me. The clone screamed loudly, its hand loosening. I fell to the floor, gasping for breath, while it howled angrily, its shape blurring like smoke. But I knew it hadn't disappeared completely. It had just retreated, waiting for a new opportunity. The room fell silent again, but the laptop still emitted an eerie blue light. In the frame, I saw the clone sitting there, a hateful smile. It raised a finger to its lips, signaling silence, then whispered, "The game isn't over yet, Daniel." I closed the laptop lid with a trembling hand, but my heart was still heavy. I knew it wouldn't give up, and the 9th night would prove that the clone didn't just want to replace me, but also to take over everyone around me. On the 9th night, I realized that this obsession was no longer confined to my apartment. As the sun set, all the electronic devices around me lit up at the same time, as if controlled by some force. The phone vibrated, the TV screen lit up, the laptop restarted itself. At the same time, a scene sent a chill down my spine. All the screens showed the same image. My distorted face, sunken eyes and cold smile stared out. I rushed to turn off the TV, unplugged it. But immediately, the phone screen lit up. I threw it into the corner. The screen broke, but the image remained. The smile was still bright. I fell to the floor, stammering, "Impossible, impossible." The laughter echoed throughout the room, no longer coming from a single source, but from all directions, as if the apartment had become a giant speaker system. I covered my ears, but the sound still penetrated my mind. Then I heard the familiar words, "Daniel, the door is open. Not just you, but everyone will see." At the same time, the laptop played a new scene. It was no longer me in the apartment, but random videos from real life. A cafe, a bus ride, a family watching TV. But the common point was that in every scene, my double appeared. He sat among the people, his eyes staring straight into the lens. His smile creepy. I screamed, trying to turn off the laptop, but the keyboard no longer responded. I hit it with my hand, but the image just shook and continued playing. I felt like I could no longer control anything. Every device around me belonged to it. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. 3 slow, dull beats. I didn't dare go near it, but the door opened by itself, revealing a dark hallway. Outside, the neighboring apartments were all lit up. I heard screams, people screaming, then silence. My heart sank. I rushed out into the hallway, looking round. On the door of each apartment, the electronic screen outside displayed my duplicate face. It knocked from inside, its eyes flashing. A neighbor opened the door and walked out. His face pale, his mouth trembling. "Daniel, ... why are you in my house?" Before I could answer, another version of me walked out of his apartment, his face smiling strangely. The neighbor screamed loudly and collapsed. I panicked and ran away, my steps unsteady, my heart pounding. All over the hallway. All the doors opened at the same time. My duplicates appeared everywhere, dozens, hundreds, each black gaze locked on me. They didn't rush over immediately, but just stood there, laughing softly in unison. The sound made my brain feel like it was about to explode. I ran back to the apartment, slammed the door, and pushed all the furniture to block it. In the apartment, the laptop was still on, displaying a map of the city. The red dots kept flashing, spreading like a plague. I stared and understood. The video was replicating itself, spreading everywhere, infiltrating every connected device. Anyone who watched it was at risk of seeing a copy of me in their world. I sat on the floor, gasping for breath. I was no longer the only victim. The video had gotten out of control. It was no longer my own story, but a collective nightmare. I thought about destroying the laptop, destroying all the devices. But then a terrifying thought flashed through my mind. If I destroyed them, would the copy escape completely, with no barrier to hold it back? All night, I just sat there with my head in my hands, listening to the laughter echoing from all over the apartment. glance at the screen, I saw the clone looking straight at me, whispering, "There's nowhere to hide, Daniel. We're going to spread out." I shivered, realizing that the 10th night would no longer be about me. That would be when the outside world would truly begin to feel the presence of this spooky video. On the 10th day, I could no longer distinguish between reality and fantasy. After the terrifying night in the hallway, I decided to leave the apartment, hoping that stepping outside would free me from the haunting. But as soon as I stepped onto the street, I immediately understood that the nightmare had spread further than I had imagined. On the giant electronic billboard at the intersection, my duplicate face appeared, its pitch black eyes following every passerby. Some stopped, looked up, then screamed in panic. Some ran away, some held their heads and sat down on the sidewalk. Their phones rang simultaneously, the screen lit up with a video. I heard screams everywhere, as if the whole city had fallen into chaos. I rushed past a store, in the large mirror hanging at the entrance. I could no longer see myself. Instead, the duplicate stood there, waving with a strange smile. I fell to the ground, trying to crawl out. People around me looked at me with fear. Some whispered, "He is the one in the video." I clearly saw the doubt and fear in their eyes. I tried to run to the bus stop, but on the windows of each car, a clone appeared, its face pressed against the glass, its eyes sunken. Pedestrians rushed to run away. Traffic was jammed. Car horns and screams rang out chaotically. I stood in the middle of the street, stunned, feeling as if the whole city had turned into a giant mirror reflecting my nightmare. Then, something that made me even more desperate happened. I saw my clone not only on the screen, but also in real life. On the roof, in the dark alley, under the streetlights, dozens of clones were standing silently, looking at me. All of them were exactly like me, except for their eyes and smiles. They didn't say anything, just bowed their heads in unison, then let out a soft laugh, blending into a creepy sound that echoed throughout the space. I screamed, covering my ears, but the sounds seemed to penetrate my brain. I tried to push through the crowd, rushing to a cafe, hoping to find shelter. But inside, every TV screen was on, all playing the video of me being pulled into my laptop. People in the cafe looked at me, then at the screen, and they started to back away, their eyes filled with fear. One person said tremblingly, "He is the cause." I wanted to explain, but my throat was tight. The clone in the video turned around, looked straight at me, and whispered, "They won't believe you. You are an outsider now." At that moment, the lights in the cafe went out, leaving only the blue light from the screen shining on everyone's faces. I saw each person start to change, their eyes gradually becoming lifeless, as if they had been sucked into the video. I panicked and rushed out. The whole city was now filled with a strange blue light. The loudspeakers from the buildings blared, but instead of an announcement, it was my voice, the clone's voice, repeating the same phrase over and over. "The door is open. Welcome to the new world." I stood still in the crowd. People gradually stopped moving, eyes blank, turned towards the big screen on the street. In that moment, I realized that the video was no longer a video. It had become a giant gate, swallowing the consciousness of the entire city. And I, the origin, now watched helplessly as the nightmare spread. But I knew this was only the beginning. The 11th night would be even more terrifying, when the clone would not only replace me, but also use thousands of faces like mine to rule the world. On the 11th night, the city was no longer the familiar city I knew. It had turned into a distorted picture, where every street corner, Every alley was flooded with an eerie blue light emitted from thousands of devices that were simultaneously turned on. People no longer ran away in panic like the day before. Many people now just stood still, eyes wide open, as if hypnotized by the video playing in front of them. I walked in despair among the motionless crowd. All of them were like puppets being pulled by an invisible hand. I wanted to shake them, but as soon as I touched them, they all turned their heads to look at me. Dozens of empty eyes were fixed on me, making my blood freeze. Then, at the same time, they burst into laughter. The laughter spread, echoing like waves from every corner of the street. I fell to my knees, hands covering my ears, but the sound did not stop. Suddenly, from the giant screens on the building, clones began to walk out. No longer virtual images, they were real, each step echoing clearly. Their shape was identical to mine, but their eyes were empty and their smiles were strange. In an instant, dozens, then hundreds of clones crowded the streets. People screamed and ran, but it was no use. Clones crept into every corner, every street, surrounding everyone. I ran as fast as I could, my heart pounding. Everywhere I looked, I saw myself on rooftops, in bus windows, even in the reflections of puddles at my feet. It was all me, but not me. They laughed loudly, their voices merging into a ghostly sound. "Daniel, you are just one of us now." I hid in a subway station, hoping to find darkness without a screen. But that hope quickly faded. Along the station, walls, advertising screens lit up simultaneously, all showing me running. The commuters crowded together, their eyes empty, staring straight at me. Then, each screen cracked, and clones began to emerge from it, crawling across the platform like animals. I cowered in the corner, my heart pounding. They approached, their eyes blank, their mouths muttering words I didn't understand. I closed my eyes in despair, praying that this was just a dream. But when I opened them, they were all around me. One of them leaned close to my face and whispered, "Open the gate, Daniel. We're everywhere now." In that moment, I suddenly realized something even more terrible. The clones didn't just want to replace me, they wanted to blend into everyone, turn the entire world into a twisted copy of me. If they succeeded, no one would be able to tell what was real from what was fake. I jumped up, pushed through the crowd of clones, and rushed out of the station. The sound of footsteps followed, echoing as if the entire city was chasing me. I ran to the central square, where a giant screen lit up the sky. My doppelganger looked down at me, grinning wickedly, whispering, "There's no turning back. This is our home." I looked up, devastated. But deep down, I knew I couldn't give up yet. I had to find a way to end this video, before the whole world turned into my own reflection of hell. And I knew the 12th night would bring me to a life or death decision, fight or disappear. By the 12th night, I no longer had the strength to simply run away. The truth was as clear as the haunting blue light. The video had become a portal, and I was the one who had opened it. If I didn't find a way to close it, the whole world would turn dark. The thought made me tremble, but it also urged me to fight back. I returned to the apartment where it had all begun. The door was closed, the room unnaturally quiet, as if waiting for me to return. The laptop lay on the table, the screen black but blue light still leaking out of the edges. I sat down, took a deep breath. Before I did anything, I had to try to regain control. I opened the laptop. The video started playing immediately, this time not of me or my clone, but a series of distorted images like a vivid cartoon. strange figures danced, my face appearing and disappearing in various forms, distorted, grinning, screaming, distorted into something less than human. The whole room was filled with images, as if I was being sucked into an endless animated horror story. I was drawn into their vortex, unable to take my eyes off the screen. They began to speak to me, hundreds of voices echoing in unison. "Daniel, you are ours. You will always be here." I trembled. But then I remembered the whispers I had heard, being able to sustain myself with real memories. I mumbled my parents' names, recalling the small memories that I knew only I had. The light in the room wavered, the distorted image on the screen trembled, as if resisting. I understood this gate was fed by fear and forgetfulness. If I lost my real memories, I would be swallowed up. I began to scribble my memories on paper. The first time I posted a video, the supportive comments from my friends, the real smile I had. The more I wrote, the more the image on the screen faded. But just when I thought I was winning, a clone from the video poked its head out of the screen, its face twisted, screaming, "You can't escape." It rushed out, its whole body slithering out of the screen like an unnatural creature. I fell backwards, retreating to the corner of the room. But instead of attacking, it just stood there, laughing coldly. Do you think you can write a few lines of memory to block it? We have thousands of faces, thousands of memories. You are just a drop in the ocean. I clenched my fist, screaming, but I am the first drop that opened the gate. If I am strong enough, I can also close it. With that, I rushed to my laptop, pressed the key combination to permanently delete my entire channel. But the red screen showed an error. Action cannot be performed. Content is live. I was stunned. This video no longer belonged to me. It had become an independent entity in desperation. I reached for the external hard drive where I had saved the original video. I thought that if I destroyed the original, perhaps the portal would close. I pulled it out and plugged it into my computer. But instead of the video files, the screen showed a series of copies of me, my face constantly repeating, my mouth muttering the familiar phrase, "There is no way back." I broke out in a cold sweat. All attempts at destruction were futile. I understood that I could not rely on the tool alone. I had to confront the copy directly, right in the world created by the video. That meant I had to go inside, where the darkness resided. The thought made my heart clench, but I had no other choice that night. I sat in front of my laptop, eyes glued to the screen, the blue light illuminating the room. I whispered, "If you want, let me in." The image on the screen fluctuated violently, then opened up into a spiral vortex, sucking in all the light. I felt my body being pulled forward, every cell vibrating violently. And then, in an instant, I was swallowed into the other world. The room disappeared. I stood in an endless space where hundreds of clones waited, their lifeless eyes locked on me. I knew this was the center of the portal, where I had to fight to regain the truth. And I also knew that the 13th night would be the decisive night. Either I could close this portal, or I would be trapped in the video forever. As the blue light engulfed me, I felt like I was falling into a bottomless pit. My body felt heavy, my ears were ringing, and then everything stopped abruptly. I opened my eyes, and all around me was an endless, dark void. There were no walls, no ceiling, no floor, just a cold surface under my feet, dimly reflecting the light from afar. I realized that I had truly been sucked into the video. This place felt both familiar and strange. In the void, whispers echoed, like hundreds of voices speaking at the same time, all of them mine. I turned around, and my heart almost stopped. Before my eyes, hundreds, thousands of clones stood in a circle. Eyes lifeless, faces distorted, smiles unnaturally long. They didn't rush in, just stood there, silently observing, like spectators waiting for the play to begin. The feeling of being home alone had never been so clear. I was completely isolated in this twisted world, with no one to call for help, no way out. I screamed loudly. The scream echoed forever, then disappeared into the darkness. The clones tilted their heads, their smiles widening. One of them stepped out of the circle, walking straight towards me. It looked exactly like me, but its eyes were two deep black holes. It stood a few steps away from me, its voice echoing loudly. "Daniel, you have come to the right place. This is your real home." I shook my head, shouting loudly, "No, this is not my home. I have a real life out there. I do not belong here." But the clone only laughed, its voice echoing throughout the space. "You opened the gate. When you entered here, you abandoned the outside world. Here, you will forever be one of us." I stepped back, my heart pounding. But as soon as I turned around, I realized there was no way to go. The circle of clones had closed. Every direction was my face, hundreds of lifeless eyes staring at me. I trembled, my hands clenched, trying to find some strength to stand firm. Suddenly, the ground under my feet cracked opening up cracks of blue light. From below the cracks, skinny hands reached out, clinging to my legs. I struggled, trying to pull away, but the more hands there were, the tighter they held. The clones' laughter echoed everywhere, hitting my ears. I desperately raised my head, seeing in the distance a large vortex of light, like another gate. It rotated, emitting a faint white light, completely different from the cold blue light here. I felt like it was the only way out. But how could I get there when hundreds of clones surrounded me? I shouted loudly, trying to focus my mind. I closed my eyes, recalling real memories. My family, the first time I posted a video, the real laughter of my friends. My body glowed slightly. The black hand that grabbed me retreated. I opened my eyes, saw the clone in front of me grimacing, the light in its eyes flickering. I understood only the truth could fight against this false world. I rushed towards the vortex, trying to squeeze through hundreds of clones. They screamed, rushing to block my way, but every time I recalled a real memory, their bodies faded, letting me move on. I felt my strength gradually drain, but the exit was getting closer. I ran, running without stopping. The sound of my footsteps echoed throughout the empty space. Behind me, thousands of clones screamed in unison, the sound like a wall pressing in. I knew if I stopped, they would swallow me whole. The vortex of light grew larger, but just before I reached it, a giant clone, twice my height, appeared in front of the gate. Its face was a synthesis of all the previous distorted smiles, its eyes shining brightly. "You cannot leave," it roared. "This is your fate." I stopped, my breath coming in short gasps. This was the gatekeeper, the one I had to face if I wanted to escape this world. I stood frozen before the gatekeeper. It was twice my height, its massive body crystallized from 1,000 compressed shadows. Its face was a distorted patchwork of all its previous copies, a smile stretching from ear to ear, its eyes glowing like two pits of blue fire every time it spoke. The sound echoed like thousands of its voice so loud that the ground beneath my feet shook. This gate is not for cowards. To pass through, you must defeat me. I swallowed, my whole body trembling. Its power was overwhelming, even from its breath. But I knew that this was the final test before reaching the vortex of light. I had no choice. I had to confront it, even if there was only a faint glimmer of hope. I rushed towards it, screaming loudly, but was immediately blown away like a leaf in a storm. My body hit the ground hard, causing pain all over my body. The laughter echoed throughout the space, like heavy raindrops falling into my ears, making me almost suffocate. I struggled to stand up, my eyes looking around. Hundreds of smaller clones were crawling under the gatekeeper's feet, their lifeless eyes following me in unison. They howled, their screams merging with the pounding rain, turning into a terrifying chord. In desperation, I closed my eyes, focusing on my real memories. I remembered the sunny days, the warm laughter of my family, the small moments in real life that no clone could have. I shouted, "I am not you, I am me." My body emitted a white light, weak but different. The gatekeeper roared, taking a step back. The light from me made the smaller clones disappear like smoke. I realized that my true memories, my true self, were my only weapon. But the gatekeeper was not easily defeated. It swung its giant arm, creating a whirlwind as strong as a storm. I was swept back, the light within me flickering. I tried to steady my mind, repeating in my head, "I am Daniel, I am real." The light flashed again, this time stronger. I rushed forward, my hand touching its dark body. Memories flooded back, each image truly shining. The gatekeeper screamed, its body cracked. Patches of darkness fell like ashes. The sound of heavy rain turned into a shrill whistle, then gradually faded away. Finally, it knelt down, its face distorted and wrinkled. Before disappearing, it whispered, "You can pass, but the price will be great." Then its giant body disintegrated into black ash. Drifting into the darkness, I gasped, sweating profusely. Before my eyes, the white vortex of light expanded, emitting a warm aura that was completely different from the coldness that enveloped this place. I knew I was very close to the exit, but in my heart, I also felt uneasy. What was the price the gatekeeper mentioned? If I stepped through, would I really return to the old world, or just fall into another nightmare level? I took a deep breath, preparing to step into the vortex. But at that moment, hundreds of remaining clones screamed in unison, the sound like rain pouring from the sky. They rushed forward, as if to stop me. I knew that the final battle was not over yet. I stood there panting, my heart pounding, cold sweat pouring down my body. The gatekeeper had vanished, but before I could enjoy a moment of relief, I heard a roar echoing through the air. Hundreds of the remaining clones rushed forward at once, their faces distorted, their eyes empty, their mouths wide open in a terrifying smile. They were like a black wave, pouring towards me from all directions. Before my recalling ordinary moments, the time I celebrated with friends, the sleepless nights editing videos, the happiness of getting the first comment on the channel. Each memory burst into flames, dispelling each shadow that blocked my path. But they didn't stop. Hundreds of clones swarmed in, overlapping, blocking the way. Some clones began to mutate, their bodies elongating, their faces overlapping into deformed monsters. They screeched, the echoes like knives cutting into my ears. I felt my legs slowing down, the light inside me fading. Fear crept into my mind, threatening to erase my memories. No. I screamed, falling, but still holding myself tight. I thought about the time my father taught me to ride a bike, about the smell of the sea breeze when I was 10, about the time I almost quit YouTube, but still tried. Each memory was like a piece of a puzzle that kept me from disappearing. The light inside me flared up again, stronger than before. I jumped up and rushed towards the vortex. The clones rushed towards me, but I used the light from my memory to drive them away. They screamed and disintegrated into pieces of black smoke, but countless more continued to pour out. As I ran, I shouted loudly, "I am the real me. I am Daniel." My voice echoed, drowning out the distorted laughter around me. The vortex was only a few meters away. I felt the warm air radiating from it, pulling me closer. But at that moment, another giant clone appeared, larger than the gatekeeper. It blocked the path, its eyes flashing, its mouth grinning widely. Its voice echoed, "You can't leave. You belong here." I stopped, my whole body trembling. Behind me, hundreds of clones rushed towards me, their footsteps resounding like thunder. In front of me, the giant monster blocked my way. I knew this would be the decisive moment. Either I muster up all my strength and charge through it, or I'll be stuck in this world forever, becoming a part of the haunting creepypasta that never ends. I clenched my fists, the light inside me burning more fiercely than ever. I screamed, charging straight towards it, regardless of everything. I stood before the giant replica, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it was about to burst out of my chest. Its body was so tall that its shadow obscured the vortex of light behind it. Its eyes were bright blue, its mouth smiled sinisterly. Its voice echoed like thunder, crashing into the empty space. "Daniel, this is the last place. If you want to pass, you must leave everything behind. Your memories, your soul, and yourself." I shook my head, shouting, "No, I don't belong here. I have a real life out there." The light inside me flashed again, but this time it was weaker. I was exhausted after a series of confrontations. The giant replica laughed loudly, its laughter echoing like the wind whistling through the old forest on a lonely camping night. The echo made me tremble, evoking the feeling of being small in the middle of an endless natural space. But instead of stars, all around me was darkness and a distorted face. It raised its giant hand and grabbed me. I flew to the side, falling to the cold ground. The impact created a deep crack, blue light bursting out like fire. Hundreds of smaller clones roared, their voices echoing everywhere, as if cheering for the giant. I stood up, trying to focus on the real memory. I remembered the ordinary moments, the smell of coffee in the morning, the sound of friends calling my name, the small comments on the first video that made me happy. The light in my body grew stronger, spreading around, chasing away the few shadows crawling nearby. But the giant did not retreat. It advanced, each step heavy as thunder. I understood that memories alone were not enough. needed something bigger. The belief that I was worthy of living, worthy of returning. I looked straight into its eyes, shouting, "You are just a shadow. I am a real person. I will not let you take my life." In an instant, the light from my body exploded violently, forming a column of dazzling white light. The giant roared, its body cracking, patches of darkness exploding like ashes. It writhed, then fell, disappearing into nothingness. Hundreds of smaller copies screamed loudly, then also disappeared into the light. The empty space gradually became quiet again. Before my eyes, the white vortex of light expanded, radiating a gentle warmth, completely different from the coldness that had enveloped it before. I stood there in a daze, my body limp, but my heart pounding with hope. I had reached the final step, but just as I was about to step into the vortex, a voice rang out from behind. It was not a distorted laugh, but a voice identical to mine, calm, deep, and steady. "Daniel, are you sure you're real?" I turned around, and my heart sank. In the middle of the dark space, another copy stood there, exactly like me, no longer distorted, no longer with a blank look. It looked exactly like me in the mirror every morning. The light around it radiated softly, making me hesitate. It smiled and continued, "If we enter the vortex, who among us will be able to return?" I stood still, my mind spinning. Was I really the original, or was I just one of the shadows born from the video? That question was like an invisible string tightening around my heart. I stood there, my heart pounding when I saw it. The perfect replica. No more distorted face, no more crazy smile, no more empty eyes. It resembled me in every detail, from the small scar on my chin, to the tired stance, to the heavy gaze. If anyone were here, they would never be able to tell which one was the real Daniel. The replica smiled, a soft, familiar smile. "You've come this far," it said in my voice, without a single deviation. "But ask yourself, are you sure you're the original? Or are you just one of the shadows that escaped from the video, trying to fight for existence?" The words were like a knife to my mind. I trembled, cold sweat breaking out. The thought had not yet crossed my mind, but hearing it come from my mouth made my heart crack. If I was just a shadow, what was the value of all the memories I held? I took a step back, my eyes on the white vortex of light behind me. The exit was only a few steps away, but standing between me and it was someone who looked like me to the point of perfection. If I was wrong, if I was fake, what would it mean to step through the vortex? Would I disappear, or would the world outside be replaced by another Daniel? "Don't look at me like I'm fake," it continued, its eyes calm, but its voice echoing as if dozens of voices were joining in. "Do you remember your childhood memories? I do. Do you remember the day I posted the first video? I do too. Then why are you so sure that I'm not you?" I shouted, because I feel fear. I know what hope and despair are. I fought all this way to get my life back. But it only smiled, didn't refute, just looked at me silently, as if pitying me. The space around me became heavy. The thousands of shadows in the distance gradually disappeared, leaving only the two of us standing in an empty world. All sounds were silent, only my heartbeat echoed. The haunted feeling wrapped around me, as if my entire soul was suspended, awaiting a verdict. I remembered the times I had seen distorted copies, crazy smiles, and surrounding shadows. They all had one thing in common. They lacked souls, lacked truth. As for me, I could still feel the pain, the regret, the love. I closed my eyes put my hand on my chest, and whispered, "I know I am real." Because I still know I was wrong and want to fix it. When I opened my eyes, the light inside me flared up stronger, white and warm. The copy in front of me frowned, the blue light around it flickering. It said, "If you believe I'm real, prove it. Eliminate me. But if you do, are you sure you didn't just kill yourself?" The question left me speechless. If I erase it, would I accidentally erase a part of myself? Or was that what was needed to close the gate? I hesitated, my hands trembling, but the white vortex behind me was slowly closing. I didn't have much time left. I screamed loudly, the light within me radiated strongly, covering the entire space. The perfect replica covered its face, its body shaking violently. Its scream echoed, half pain, half anger. I rushed forward, determined to touch it, accepting the price I had to pay. I rushed forward, white light bursting out all over my body, touching the perfect clone. At that moment, space exploded into intertwined white and blue rays of light. It felt like two souls were colliding, trying to devour each other. I screamed, feeling my memories being torn apart, mixed with the clone's memories. Childhood images, joy, pain, all mixed together. Twisted together to the point where I could no longer tell what was mine and what was his in that vortex. I heard its voice echo in my head. "Daniel, we are the same. We are both real. Why destroy a part of myself?" I trembled, but did not stop. I shouted, "No. I am the only one. I will not let you replace me." The white light within me exploded, forcing back the blue light. The clone screamed. Its body began to crack. But just when I thought I was winning, memories from it rushed in. I saw that the clone also remembered the day I first posted the video, also heard the laughter of friends, also felt the feeling of loneliness. I was stunned. If it also had memories, then was it also me? I staggered, the light in my body flickering. The clone took advantage, shouting, "You are no different from me. If I disappear, a part of you will disappear too." Its words were like a knife, stabbing deep into my heart. I began to doubt myself. Was I just a shell born from its own despair? But then, I remembered everything I experienced out there. The real fear when hearing the knock on the door, the loneliness in the apartment, the determination to run through thousands of shadows. Those were not copied memories. Those were emotions I lived, I felt. I gritted my teeth and shouted, "You may have memories, but you don't have real feelings. That's what makes me different." The light inside me exploded again, so bright that the space seemed to disintegrate. The clone screamed, its body cracking into 1,000 pieces, shattering in an endless echo. The screams disappeared, leaving only silence. I collapsed, exhausted, but the white light still surrounded me, keeping me from falling into darkness. Before my eyes, the vortex of light expanded wider than ever, radiating a gentle warmth. I stood up, my legs trembling, and walked towards it. But before I stepped in, I heard a final whisper echo in my mind. "Daniel, are you sure that when you step through, the other world will still be real?" I froze. The question hung like a curse. I looked into the vortex, seeing familiar images glittering in it. My apartment, the city outside, the faces of passers-by. But everything was blurry, like a film about to end. I took a deep breath. I had no choice. Real or not, I had to step through. Otherwise, I would be trapped here forever. I closed my eyes, took a step into the vortex of light. My body felt light lifted. The sounds disappeared. No more laughter, no more screams, just the echo of my heartbeat. I opened my eyes and found myself standing in a familiar room, my apartment. But something was different. Everything was too quiet, too perfect. I opened my eyes and found myself standing in the middle of a familiar apartment. Everything was in its place. A neat desk, a neat laptop, the old chair where I used to edit videos, even the curtains fluttering in the breeze outside. Everything was exactly as I had last seen it, but there was something too perfect. Not a speck of dust, not a trace of displacement, not the chaos I had lived with. I paced around the room, my heart pounding. This apartment was strangely beautiful. I placed my hand on the wooden table, smooth as if it had just been cleaned. I opened a drawer. Inside it was absolutely neat. I shivered. This was not my life. I had never lived so neatly. I looked out the window. The city in the distance was bright. The sky was clear. Not a cloud in sight. People walked calmly, all smiling. A chill ran down my spine. This city was too peaceful, too quiet. It was like a painting, not reality. I turned back inside. The laptop on the table suddenly lit up. The screen was the familiar video, but this time there was no scene of me being scared, no distorted face. The video showed me sitting, smiling, speaking calmly, as if I had never experienced a nightmare. I tried to turn it off, but there was no response. The screen continued to play, and I saw the me in it start to look straight out. Eyes locked on me. I sat down heavily on the chair, cold sweat soaking the back of my shirt. For a moment, I wondered, had I really escaped, or had I just entered another trap? The clone might have left its own revenge stories, creating a fake, perfect world to bind me forever. A soft sound rang out from the bathroom. I trembled as I walked towards it. The door was ajar, steam rising from the opaque water. I pushed it open, my heart tightening when I saw the mirror on the wall. In the mirror, I was still standing there, but the face reflected didn't move with me. It smiled slowly, its eyes cold. I panicked and stepped back, slamming the door. A familiar voice echoed, "Daniel, do you think you've won? This is just the beginning. You can run, you can fight, but in the end, you'll still live in this video." I screamed loudly, clenched my fists, and rushed out of the bathroom. The apartment around me changed. The walls began to crack. The white light turned into a cold blue. The city outside the window distorted. The faces of passers-by turned towards me with identical smiles. I collapsed, holding my head, feeling hopeless. But deep down, a small ray of hope still remained. I knew I was very close to the truth. The clone could trap me in an illusion, but it couldn't erase my true memories. I had to find a way to use that memory one last time to break the loop. I sat down on the floor of the apartment, my heart pounding like a drum. Everything around me was still suspiciously perfect. The city outside was bright, so peaceful that not even a car horn could be heard. In the room, everything was shiny, as if it had just been set down. But deep down, I knew this wasn't real. This was just a final illusion, an elaborate trap to keep me there. The laptop on the table lit up again, showing me sitting in this exact position, looking desperate. But in the video, I began to smile. A slow, sinister smile that spread across my face. I stared, trembling. The video whispered, "Daniel, accepted. Here you will no longer be afraid. You will live in eternal peace." I jumped up, shouting, "This is not peace. This is prison." The surrounding walls began to crack, cracks glowing a faint blue. The cracking sound echoed throughout the room like the sound of broken glass. The city outside the window distorted, the buildings distorted, the faces of the passers-by melted into lifeless smiles. I clenched my fists, white light bursting from my body. Dozens of faces appeared on the wall, all of them copies of me, laughing in unison. They said at the same time, "If you destroy this place, you can also disappear. Are you ready?" My heart tightened. This was the last choice. Stay and be trapped forever in the fake perfection, or destroy it and risk no longer existing. I closed my eyes, remembering everything. The first knock on the door, the first copy coming out of the screen, the fight with the gatekeeper, and the perfect copy that looked exactly like me. All of it came like waves. I shouted, "I am real. I will not be imprisoned." The light inside me exploded, brighter than ever. The walls shook violently. The distorted face cracked, disintegrated into pieces of black smoke. The laptop exploded. The screen shattered. The blue light extinguished. The city outside the window collapsed, turning into ashes. The entire apartment shook violently, then shattered like cracked glass. In that moment, I fell freely into the void. There was no more apartment, no more video, only darkness and the remaining white light around me. I felt my body become light. My heart stopped beating for a moment. I opened my eyes and found myself lying on the bed. The room was messy, dust everywhere. The laptop was on the table, turned off. Outside the window, the sounds of cars and people talking and laughing rang out normally. I jumped up, my heart still pounding. I rushed to the table, opened the laptop. The screen booted slowly, no sign of the ghost video. I gasped, my eyes blurred with tears. Maybe I had really escaped. But when I turned back to look at the mirror in the room, my heart stopped. In the mirror, I was still standing there, but the reflection did not smile like me. It just looked at me silently, its eyes empty, then slowly raised its finger to its lips to signal silence. I collapsed, fear rising again. Had I truly escaped, or had I just entered another, more sophisticated layer of illusion?